Welcome to the Snake River Championship, sponsored by Teton Auto Group. I'm the tournament director, Cooper Siebers, and I'm joined here by our assistant tournament director, Coy Blanchard.
Hey everyone, Coy Blanchard here. I absolutely love this property, and I'm super stoked to be running a tournament here as well as at Freeman Park. Today we're just going to be going over Snake River Landing. Special thanks to Snake River Landing as well as Ball Ventures. These guys have really pulled through for the past couple years and letting us run tournaments here. Today we're going over the Snake River Landing course. It's 8,567 feet, par 63. Turn it over to Cooper for hole 1.
All right, so introducing you to hole 1 on the Snake River Landing property is a beautiful par 4 coming in at 668 feet. This hole will have OB line on the right. Basically, you can't miss anywhere in the fairway. However, getting maximum distance really does help with your approach shot. As you can see as we approach the green, it's severely guarded by a couple of differently sized trees. And so you need to have the best angle and distance and able to get around this one last pine tree guarding the basket to get your birdie.
And it sounds pretty easy, but birdies aren't easy on hole 1, and it doesn't get any easier here on hole 2. 364-foot par 3. This year we are playing this hole as an island. We've played this hole every single year that we have ran a tournament on this property. The drop zone is going to be on the left-hand side of your screen. But usually every year we sort of change up the rules. This year we're going with that island. Basically, it is a hyzer backhand for a righty over the water, or something up the middle, or a forehand around the trees. Basket sits right here by the rock. This is a very scary hole to play. It's definitely not easy.
Well, if you enjoyed that first water carry experience on hole number 2, welcome to hole number 3. This is yet again another water carry here. For the Pool A players, this will play as a 328-foot par 3. For the B Pool players, 227. Players can elect to go to a drop zone, which is about 40 feet from the basket if they do not land on the island. But once again, enjoy the water carry and hope you get your birdie here.
All right, on to hole 4 here. This is a 615-foot par 4. Road is out of bounds on the left-hand side. Players are going to want to basically bomb this as far as you can while also keeping it pretty close to that OB road. The reason why is this telephone pole here is a mandatory, and there is also going to be an OB line pretty tight around this 90-degree corner, keeping you really close to that mando as well as that OB. Very tough birdie to get here.
All right, now that some of the scarier holes are accounted for, here players have a chance to throw down a hill. The hole is 391 feet. It's a par 3. Players have a chance to throw a drive as hard as they can into this green down here. Really, the only mistake is to hit one of the trees early, or it's very common for players to skip out of the back and into the water. So be careful as you approach this green and get your hopefully birdie.
Hole 6 is a downhill 377-foot par 3 that technically plays onto this island of grass, though we are not calling this an island hole. You have the option of either laying up short and pitching across for the par, or taking the very scary shot to the island green. If you end up short, you will take it from the path. If you cross the island at any point, you can take it from where you were last in bounds. This is a very tough hole that there's not a lot of birdies, and it's going to be a score separator.
Hole 7 features one of our more interesting fairways on the course. This hole 7 is 377 feet long. It is a tunnel shot over the creek. Anything in the water and on the rocks will be played as out of bounds. There is also an OB line to the right, the same one that is shared with the fairway of hole 1. It is common for players to throw a flex forehand, a backhand straight or turnover shot through this tunnel, or go for the safer hyzer play on the outside. This one is difficult, so if you get your par, it's not a terrible score. The basket is right here on the edge of the canal.
Hole 8 is a newly designed hole this year. It is a 612-foot par 4. You're starting off going through this tunnel of trees. The last two act as a double mando. You do have to make it onto the grass, or you proceed to a drop zone which sits in between those mando trees. You have this wide open field to throw the disc as far as you possibly can, though I do recommend that you also try to get your disc to move right in order to make this approach easier. The approach is probably the hardest part of this hole because it is heavily guarded by these trees. It also sits on the top of a very steep hill on these rocks, only 15 feet short of that out of bounds path right there.
Now we move to hole 9. This is a par 3, 323-foot hole. Players must go past a Mando pole on the right side and go up a hill in order to find the basket, which will be situated next to this large pine as well as the water feature. Typical players go for a forehand here in order to get to the basket, although the backhand turnover is in play.
Hole 10 for the A pool is going to be a 362-foot island hole. B pool will be playing it from about 271 feet. You have a wide open shot here that makes it so you can approach this island in whatever way you really want. This is a pretty big island. I think it's going to be a hard one to miss. You do have to worry about the guardian tree on the left and the right. The basket will sit right here at the edge of the bowl. Probably a must-get birdie, I think.
Now, after a long walk at hole 11, the A pool will play a nearly 400-foot par 3, while B pools will play a shorter hole, with OB all the way to the left, which then pans out to a larger green area down here at the bottom. There's a couple trees to avoid. The hole is pretty straightforward, but can be difficult to gauge the distance and the angle required in order to find a bullseye on this basket right here between the trees.
Hole 12 is a 323-foot double island hole that bends pretty far over to the right over all this water. You can either go for the short island and then pitch across for the par, or go for that second island to try and get the birdie. If you do not land in bounds, you'll go to a drop zone, which will be right around the left-hand side of your screen. To navigate through all these trees and get all the way to the basket is going to be a pretty tall task. Getting a birdie here would be great.
Well, I hope you enjoyed your island hopping experience on hole 12. We now move on to hole 13. This is a shorter, uphill 276-foot par 3. This is really the signature hole of the property. As you can see, the fairway is beautifully manicured, and it's just begging for a fun uphill shot. The trick is navigating these final trees around the basket, finding the perfect bullseye so you don't have to worry about turbo putting or scuba putting around these tall pine trees.
Hole 14 is 282 feet. We have a blind left to right moving shot. Really, there's not much in the way, though you do have some pretty big pine trees over here on the right to contend with if your shot fades out early. The basket is going to sit on the side hill just in front of those bushes. The toughest part about this hole is going to be the putting, but it is definitely a hole that you're trying to get a birdie on.
All right, moving on to hole 15 here. The drone is in the middle of the fairway, and we understand that we've been a little bit cruel with this course design, so hole 15 is here to remind all of us that disc golf is supposed to be fun. Here, players can throw their preferred forehand or backhand shot, throw it as hard as they possibly want to try to find the basket here on the grass. Really, the only danger is going OB long on that sidewalk or in the water feature there, but have fun on this one.
And speaking of fun, we have the very tough hole 16, 761-foot par 5, starting off through this tunnel of trees over the out-of-bounds water right here. We do have some Mandos keeping us left. You'll want to land your drive somewhere around right here, which is where the B pool is teeing off from. Your second shot you have to navigate over these bushes, through all of these giant pine trees, and avoiding all of the out of bounds on this hole. There is a lot of out of bounds, a lot of big pine trees to deal with. This is going to be a very tough hole, and it doesn't get any easier. The basket sits elevated on these rocks with the green sloping in all directions around it. Makes for a very tough hole. It's going to be a good one to get if you can.
Moving on to the second par 5 of this final stretch, hole 17, for those who have been playing Snake River Landing since its inception, this is a hole that's been here since day one. It is nothing short of perfection. This piece of the property was perfectly designed for an amazing par 5. Essentially, players have to try to get to the landing zone, which we just passed, navigate their way through this bowl, and then to get a birdie, would have to throw one last final finesse shot through this tunnel that approaches the basket. There is an OB section to the right with the canal there. There's also an OB section aligned to the left. So be aware of the caddy book to know where those lines are. Just be aware that playing the right side of this fairway is extremely wooded and difficult.
Rounding us out here on hole 18, we have a beautiful 728-foot par 5. Your initial drive is starting out over this water and through these big pine trees. You're trying to land somewhere out here in the open to set yourself up for an easier second shot. Your second shot, you're trying to land as close to the water as you can, away from the pine trees, to set yourself up for the final approach onto this perfect island green. The rules are a little tricky here on this hole. Definitely one you want to pay attention to the caddy book. But oh my goodness, what a way to finish a course. This beautiful hole 18.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this video. We're so excited to have everyone back at Snake River Landing. They have been so gracious to let us play here. And thanks for supporting all of our efforts to bring disc golf to an amazing property in Idaho Falls. I'll turn it over to Coy to thank our sponsors.
Now, first and foremost, huge thank you to our title sponsor, Teton Auto Group, other major sponsors, Bish's RV here in Idaho Falls, and big thanks to our whole sponsors, Happy Camper, Aspen Acres, and some of our locals here that are playing in the tournament. And get registered now at discgolfscene.com. This is going to be a great tournament, guys. Thanks for watching.